We're here today. We got dual Lithionics batteries on this 2021 Unity, and we're adding a second DC to DC charger. So I've turned off the battery power. Now I've got to take the seat off so I can trip the circuit breakers to the Kisae that's in there now to cut power, going to the bus bar back in the coach. So we'll take this seat off and get ready to install a second Kisae DC to DC charger. Okay, so there is an opening to the leisure inside where the seat base, right above the right above in this 2021 Murphy bed, Unity Murphy bed. It's right above the leveler pump. So we're going to pull our 4-gauge wire through it and get to the passenger seat base. Okay, Mark. Pull it.
Oh, pull it?
Yeah.
Got it. Got it.
Got it through?
You want me to keep pulling or not?
Yeah, well, just pull it so we, a good amount.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's done. Now we'll have to refill this, but you can see it goes right into the back of the passenger seat base. Let's see. Yeah, it's right above there. It's basically, here's the catalytic converter. Here's the leveler box reservoir cover. So it's basically right behind, here's the jack on the passenger side. So it's right in this corner where the frame joins together, up on the ceiling of the underneath. Okay, and this is where it came out on the passenger seat base. So there's plenty of room. Yeah, we've got plenty of, okay. So you can see where that is under the passenger seat base. Okay, there's our first DC to DC charger. So now to get to work on the second one. Okay, so I covered the cable with some corrugated wire loom, and I've run it along here. Let's see, let me get a picture. Okay, so I've run it along here, around here, down here, right there, and then between the battery box and the side compartment. And then I'll show you where it comes out. Okay, so it's running between the, I can't get this to focus, but it's running between the battery box and the side compartment, and it goes in this hole in the side, and it comes out right there. So it's this cable right here, and I have it coming around, and I added an 100 amp ML-RBS terminal fuse to the positive bus bar of my Victron Lynx power in, and so that's all hooked up there. Now I just put the little cap over it to protect it. Okay, so that's all done, and I'm going to make a cap for that exposed bus bar there. So it had a red cover like that over it, but now I want to put something over it as well, just to keep it covered up, since that is a power bar. Okay, so my connection to the house battery for the DC to DC charger with, and I used four AWG 4-gauge wire. And that's going to be my new house battery wire to the Kisae, to the second Kisae DC to DC charger we're putting under the passenger seat. So we'll have, once we're done, we'll have up to 100 amps of alternator charging when driving. Okay, so I covered up my bus bar, so that's nice and protected. So I'm all done with connecting that to my bus bar. So that's my house battery wire for my Kisae 50 amp DC to DC charger. Okay, so we pulled up all the flooring in the cab so we could run a 4-gauge wire from the chassis battery over there around through to come out there for the chassis battery. Okay, so I'm going to have two circuit breakers, two 60 amp circuit breakers. One will be for the house battery and one will be for the chassis battery. Then I'm going to take off from this end for my house and chassis battery connections on the Kisae. The other thing that we're doing while we're in here is we're adding this Blue Sea ML-RBS. It's a remote battery switch, and it comes with a little switch. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a jumper wire from the battery side of each of these breakers and put this in line, so when there's an emergency, like the chassis battery is dead, they can come and turn this switch to on, and it joins the Lithionics house batteries to the chassis battery, and they can actually use the Lithionics battery to start their engine in an emergency. So we're going to be installing that little switch on the awning switch panel. And I'm going to be putting a 5 amp fuse on the power supply for that. So let's keep moving. Okay, to wire up the remote battery switch, I'm using 16 gauge wire, but in a 6-wire configuration. I really need 5 wires, but I could buy a 6-wire, so I'm going to wire this together. I'm going to put my 5 amp fuse in. I've got some heat shrink, but I'm going to be using my solder connectors to put each wire together. And then I will put female spade connectors to hook onto the switch. So I will get on with that. Okay, when you're doing the solder seal, I'm just using a lighter, but you can see what it started out being. But what you want to do is heat it up till you see the solder flow like liquid. It's really hard to see on the camera, but you can see that the solder, see, it flowed, it got liquidy, and that makes the connection. So you want to heat it up until you see it melt and flow like liquid, and then stop heating it. And then I like to cover it with a heat shrink tube, so if I overheated it, melted any part of it at the connection, they won't short, touch each other or short out or anything. Okay, so I've got my two 60 amp circuit breakers placed. I've got my new emergency jump start battery switch in place. This is going to be a isolator solenoid that I use on the chassis battery cable, this cable, before It goes to the Kisae, so when the ignition is off, the Kisae is off, and the Kisae is going to sit on my little this and right here. So let me get on with making all the connections. Okay, so I've got my first cables on right there. That's to the battery side, or each of these circuit breakers is marked battery or auxiliary. So I connected the house battery, the new house battery cable that we ran, to this battery terminal on the circuit breaker. And then I also connected the cable that I'm going to use to attach to the A terminal on this blue C battery switch, which is the battery you want to use as a starter battery to start your engine. And then we're going to use the house battery. So I've got it connected to the house battery. So now the house battery cable is connected to the blue C switch, and it's connected to the circuit breaker. So the circuit breaker connection, this remaining circuit breaker connection will go to the DC to DC charger. And then of course this is the the engine battery side, and this is the chassis battery connection, which I'll be, running there. Okay, so let me get on with that. Okay, and there are my chassis battery connections. Chassis batteries going under there and running over there to the chassis battery. And so that's done. Okay, now I bought 3 sets of these pre-made 6-gauge cables, and I'm going to now attach them to the auxiliary side of my circuit breakers. And these will be the ones that will attach to the Kisae terminals, just like those there. So I will get on with that. Okay, so I have my last 2 connections made. I've got my cables here ready to go on my Kisae. Okay, so now everything's done, buttoned up. Now I can go ahead and get my little stand on and get my Kisae on. Okay, take the time to go ahead and zip tie your legs down on your platform so you know it's very sturdy and solid. All right, so I've got all my grounds on this back seat bolt, and I have a ground for my switch. I have a case ground, so I put both of them on there and put it on that ground bolt. So all my grounds are done. Now I'm ready to start wiring. And I'm going to be using these 2, channel 3 and channel 1. Okay, the chassis battery is channel 3 and the house battery is channel 1. And I have to put this isolator solenoid on the chassis battery, in between the chassis battery connection and the Kisae. So I'll get on with that. Okay, I have my Isolator Relay all hooked up, and I pre-marked it so I would know that this terminal was for the Kisae. This terminal over here was for the chassis battery, and this terminal, number 86, is for the ignition wire. 85 is your ground wire. Now, for the ignition wire, what I used was, this is a 2021 Unity, so it had ignition wires connected to the Sterling. And you always have to keep the Leisure ignition wires together because it's a series. They're all in series to provide the single ignition, voltage signal to things like the Sterling that was under here, the three-way refrigerator for its automatic power feature, the awning for its safety feature, different things like that. So I just spliced a wire to that, and that made up my ignition wire. So now I'm going to mount this. I have a hole, existing hole right there on the side of the seat base. So that's where I'm going to mount it and continue hooking up my wires. Okay, so I've got everything wired. This, as you can see, this is the chassis battery running to the isolator solenoid, which runs to the chassis battery circuit breaker. And then this side is the house battery, which runs down here to the house battery circuit breaker. So we got everything hooked up now. I've got my little jumper switch hooked up and installed. So last thing we need to do is make the chassis battery connection. So I'll do that. All right, so I made my connection here on this terminal. This is all buttoned back up. Now I just put the lid on, put the top on, and we're done. Okay, the cap is on, and I always put a little extra foam where I know there's going to be wires. I need a piece over here just to make sure nothing's going to get pinched. So I'll get the top back on, and we'll keep moving on. Okay, one thing I didn't show was this little cap that covers the wires. It just presses down on these machine screw heads, and so then I cut this slot in the side so the wire could easily go in and not be pinched or anything. So that's how I went in on the battery compartment side. And then as far as the rest of it, I'm just laying it on top of the wire chase and running it in the hole. Now you can, if you look on this side from the passenger seat, you can see this is the wire chase down here with the wires. You can try and run a snake through and bend it and come out there, but it's very difficult, and I just didn't want to waste the time, fooling around with it. So if you're, if you want to, if you have the time and you want to, fool with it, otherwise just lay it on top. You'll never know it under this thick padding of the plastic mat that comes for the floor. So let me get on with finishing this up. Okay, so I've snapped the panel back in, and you can see my switches right there. So all the wiring, everything is fine, nothing's pinched. That's good. So now I'm going to make the hole on this cover a little bit larger because I have two, and then I'll be able to get the seat back on. Okay, so now we need to close our circuit breakers, and the Kisae should start up. There it is. Now I've got to go through the settings.
So you close it.
Okay, there we have it.
Huh?
We're done and I can put the seat back on.
Really?
Okay, so I got my seat cover back on. Now we just need to lift the seat and put it back on and put our 4 bolts in, and we're done.